Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Daniel Todd, CEO and founder of Influence Mobile. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us and great to see you.
Good to see you too, Rob. Excited for our conversation, and thanks for the invite.
Before I jump in with our first question, just a note to the audience. Daniel and I met at Birthing of Giants, I think about a year and a half ago, and then we ended up hitting it off pretty well. And I'm really psyched for this discussion because I do know quite a bit about you and your business. And I think it's so compelling. It's such a great story, and there's so much for people to learn. I'm really looking forward to sharing all of that with our audience. So let's start with Influence Mobile. What does Influence Mobile do? How long has it been around? Where are you based out of? All that fun stuff.
Sure. So I started the company in April 2012. So we're about 12 and a half years in, I think, hitting on 13. I started the company in Seattle. We have a good base of employees, about 15, 20 people in the greater Seattle, Washington area. We have about 70 employees overall. We bought a company 2 years ago called Blind Ferret Media, which is a large outsourced sales partner of ours. So we have about half of our employees, a little bit less than half, in Canada, spread primarily in Montreal, but throughout. And what we do is we reward people to find and play mobile games on their phone. Much like an airline rewards miles program, the more people spend, the more they earn. So while we do reward people to just come in, and the invitation is come in, install 3 games, play those games for about an hour over the first 24 hours, and you'll get a $5 gift card. We give out millions of dollars a year in rewards, but what we're really trying to do is find the people that spend money in games. There's more money spent in games than in all movies and concerts and live sports combined. It's over $100 billion. And what's most shocking about that is it's done primarily by roughly 5% of the people who install games, and disproportionately done by females over the age of 35. So older females control a lot of the purse strings in America from both shopping, but they also spend a lot of money in games. And so we've developed our app to primarily reward those people who spend anywhere from $5 to $50 a day in those games. We give them roughly 10 to 20% cash back. So an example of this would be a woman earlier this year who spent $9,000 in 1 month in all these games. Again, they're our clients. We gave that person $2,000 back in rewards. And so you can imagine, if you're getting that much back in rewards, you're really going to stick around and use our product. And that's what we want. So we end up keeping these people who spend a lot of money, which makes every new game developer come in, find a very target-rich environment, which makes them willing to pay us more, which just creates this very nice positive circle. So we have clients on both sides. We bring in the spenders, we bring in the players and the game developers, and then we make this nice ecosystem that makes everybody happy.
Gotcha. Just so everybody understands, the people who pay you, the client, are the game developers, and it seems like you're almost like a marketing arm for them.
Exactly right. And so, whether it's Candy Crush or Yahtzee or Scrabble, many of these women play games on their phone. And again, it's not just women. It's any adult. We target anybody over the age of 18. We have people from every age and gender, but they're typically spending hours a day on their phone, 7 days a week, and they play 4, 5, 6 games at a time. And so for one game developer, get a person is very expensive. And then a majority of those people don't end up spending money, right? So when they come to us, they pay more or less the same amount of money that they might pay Google or Facebook, except Google or Facebook just does the job of getting the install. We then spend a significant amount of our time and energy driving engagement and spending, and we're recognized typically as one of the top 2 or 3 in the world at doing what we do in terms of keeping these people engaged. Game developers pay us, part of the marketing arm, but it's not just the marketing side. It's really the engagement and retention that puts us head and shoulders above most everybody else.
Gotcha. Daniel, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to starting Influence Mobile?
So I had started, as I came out of college, like computers and the internet were just the new thing, ironically.
I remember those days, yeah.
Yeah, so mid-90s, I had a PC. I had exposure to PCs, actually. I didn't own my first PC just yet. As a kid, it wasn't that common, but I was kind of the computer kid. And so when I started working in college at this insurance company, I knew a little bit more about computers than anybody else. And so all of a sudden I was the computer guy. And that kind of led to me getting into Microsoft certified software engineer stuff, which then led a good friend of mine to invite me to start this company with him in the late 90s, right before the internet burst. And that company was really where I cut my teeth on marketing, user experience, and we made a lot of mistakes. We did a lot of things right. The company grew to, 70 million a year in revenue, hundreds of employees, but we made enough mistakes that I had left, but by the time the company hit the kind of economic downturn in 2008, 2009, it fell apart. It had too much debt. It sold for pennies on the dollar. And so a few years went by and I really still had this itch to scratch, which was like, can I take all of the good parts of what we learned from a user acquisition perspective and really build it around a core value proposition where users have a strong affinity for whatever I'm giving them. Initially, it was a little bit different than what we do today. It was focused on celebrities and things that people also care a lot about, but we shifted into just straight up rewards, a rewards ecosystem. And so I took all of those things that I learned and have tried to apply them and avoid the same mistakes that I had made in the first round.
Gotcha. So it seems like you and I guess now your company have become really proficient in understanding how to drive behaviors, which is very powerful in business.
Yeah, I mean, we try to influence it. We don't take a person who's never spent money in a video game and compel them. I mean, we do, but a very small percentage, right? What we really do is reward the people who were already going to spend over in this bucket of games, and we just shift their behavior into this bucket of games. And that creates a whole lot of value for our clients, the game developers.
Yeah.
And then along the way, it creates a lot of value for the game players because we have about 6,000 people who collectively spend millions of dollars, like our top 1%. They spend millions of dollars a month. And we kind of treat them like royalty. We treat them like the Vegas casinos treat the high rollers. We send them swag. I've got a whole stack of t-shirts over here off the screen that I send to people. We give them bonus points and opportunities, and we communicate with them regularly. We're building custom features for them, and that makes them feel special. They're playing games that they already like, and then we're doing all this stuff on top of them. And that's just something that I learned that we didn't do in my first company that our current company has really benefited from, which is have a very clear, personal, and direct relationship with your customers.
Top customers. Yeah, got it. Switching gears a little bit, I know that Influence Mobile has received a number of awards on best places to work. You've been on the 5,000. Let's talk a little bit about best places to work. I feel like that there have always been business owners that understood the importance of culture and the importance of creating a great work environment, but it's certainly picking up a lot of steam now. I mean, there seems to be now a better understanding, probably because the workforce is demanding it, right? Tell us a little bit about how you approach culture and what has led to Influence Mobile being a best place to work.
Sure. Well, the origin from it, again, came from my earlier experiences, and it was purely selfish in the sense that I wanted to enjoy my work experience, right? Long before I was the CEO, I had worked with people that I had participated in hiring that were horrible to work with, right? And nobody wants to do that on a regular basis. Work at a startup is already challenging enough. I have since then always prioritized, and I say this a lot of different times, that I will always hire a person who's 100% culture fit, which I can define what that means to me, and maybe only say a 75% technical fit for the role over the inverse. Because if you hire a person who's awesome technical person to do the job, but no one likes to work with them, is not going to work out. I don't care what happens. And it seems obvious to me, but even the people who know my philosophy, they'll still be like, well, that person's a little bit more qualified, but this person is an awesome, like everybody's enjoyed the interviews. And it almost seems like people think it's too trivial to hire the person you like more. And I'm like, it's not trivial. Like, it's the key. So when we went through a lot of tough times over the years, we got down to a pretty tight group. I was very transparent with people. So there's some sort of foundational ways I've treated people. But for the most part, it's just hiring people that, in my mind, when I say a common culture, is we all have a growth mindset. We all believe that we're not perfect, that the people around us are not perfect, but we can all grow and improve. We try to be very transparent, as I mentioned, on where we're at from a company perspective, where we're headed. We try to hide things, try to be very metrics driven. So it's meritocracy. Everybody can bring their ideas, whether you've been here 1 day or 10 years. Now, you might not know as much after 1 day, but it doesn't mean your ideas are not invalid just because you have 1 day of experience. You have fresh eyes. You can bring new things. We try to spend time as much as we can in this remote work world building relationships. And about 3 weeks ago, we took our dev and product team to San Diego and met with everybody for 3 or 4 days and went to the San Diego Zoo, and almost exclusively building relationships with people who don't get to see each other than just this way. And it's been massively beneficial. I would say we're very purposeful in building those relationships, and it's definitely borne a lot of fruit.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for explaining a little bit about how you view and manifest a great culture. And one of the things I liked in there a lot is you hire people that you like, because people want to be with people that they like. It just seems like common sense, but of course, common sense isn't that common, is it? You made the Inc. 5000 list this year. I don't think it's your first time. Is that right?
For Influence Mobile, this is the third straight year. At my previous company that I co-founded, I made it twice. So I didn't even know this, but yeah, Lewis posted something and said I was on a list of people who made it 5 times. I'm like, awesome. That's sweet. I like it.
It's funny that you didn't even know. Lewis, by the way, is Lewis Schiff from Gathering of Giants, Birthing of Giants. It's interesting. I think it's one thing for a relatively new company to make it. Work Better Now, we're going to be coming up on our 6th year, and we'll qualify for it next year. It's a little easier if you just think about how you qualify based on revenue, percentage growth, and all of that in the beginning, and then to qualify once or maybe twice. But to make it 3 years in a row means you got some serious growth going on. What do you attribute that to? What has led to that?
I hate to trivialize it about people, but it's about getting the right people. Now, it's also about getting the right model in place. When we first started this rewarding behavior, it was not common. In fact, there were perceptions about something that was called incentivized installs in the marketplace, where in the early days, you could game the Apple store by getting a bunch of people to install your app, like literally 100,000 people. And whether they made you 1 penny or $1,000 didn't matter, because all of a sudden you'd show up as the top most downloaded app. And then that was a self-fulfilling cycle. I know people who sold their companies for $50 million to other games companies by basically doing that. Maybe it's defrauding Apple, but whatever. It was real value and real money, right? But people kept doing that. And if that was your primary source of installs and you weren't actually leading to gaming the system, it didn't create anything. So we had to actually show people that we weren't just about driving the install. It was about finding and keeping these spenders. And it took a lot of technical work, but then it also took a lot of sales communication, right? And so I told you we bought this company in 2020, but in 2018, I met the CEO, and he and their sales team had a lot more experience in the mobile space. They had a lot more relationship with game developers. And so it took a lot of meetings and explanations and showing people in steps of faith to give us a budget and prove that our numbers worked. So it took both the combination of good product experience. Obviously, we needed to be able to support our players and have customer service and do all those different things. But then it took a great sales team to get out there and prove. There's a lot of companies that build a great widget, but then can't sell it. So you need the mixing of all those things: customer support, product development, and sales. And we brought those together in a nice matchup.
And when you say sales, just to be clear, that's selling Influence Mobile to the game developers.
Yeah. I had developed a relationship with a company called Scopely, which is a large game developer, and they were very critical in helping me form the product. I knew it was working, and then I met Randy, who was the CEO of this company called Blind Ferret, and I was like, you've got all these other relationships, the Zyngas and Playticas of the world. I'm like, if you could just do for them what I did with Scopely and educate them and help them understand how valuable this is, we can make a lot of money together. I'm like, we can make so much money together that maybe we'd eventually just merge, which is what happened, right? So they would meet with these folks, and they're all over the world, and sit down, and now they're, our head of sales, Jordan, knows way more about the product than I do, and he's so smooth and so good at what he does. So it does come down ultimately the people that you put together. We all enjoy working together, but then we all do our parts in the right way, and it connects. And we've had like 2,000% growth over the last 5 or 6 years. So
amazing. So if I distill it down, it's having great people, great culture. Nothing happens without that. Business model, which seems like you tweaked a little bit over the years. Not to mention you had the practice of the previous company or companies. And the other thing is, it's not just the business model that evolved, but it seems like you're constantly making little tweaks to the business model and to the way you're doing business that's reacting to the fact that it's a changing marketplace, especially anything digital. That sounds to me like those are the major elements of of your success. Is there anything missing from there?
No, and I think the point you made about it's not it's thousands of small, generally on point decisions. So they're not going to all be right, but you're constantly evolving. You're talking to your customers, both sides. You're talking to players, you're talking to app developers, you're understanding what's important to both sides. And then you have to take that and translate it into a product experience that improves the outcomes for both sides. And then you got to have a sales team that goes and explains that to people. And you need to do that hundreds and hundreds of times to kind of slowly tweak it. It's not very likely that you can just have one grand slam home run that takes you from 3 million to 70 million. It's lots and lots of small decisions put together and strung together over time and executed, which is again why the team matters, because these are not things you can accomplish in just a matter of a few days or weeks. It's months upon years building and moving those things along, oftentimes for several years, where the seed is planted and you don't see anything above ground. It looks kind of deserty. And then all of a sudden something starts to bud, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, all those years of work have started to pay off.
Right. Very, very powerful stuff. Well, last question on that. Do you have a process for evolving, or is it built into the culture and the core values of the company?
I guess it's a little bit of both. I'd like to believe it's built into the culture. I have my own process of trying to think. I always try to think about at least 6 months ahead, but it's kind of hard to do too much more than 6 months about where I'd want to be. And I usually, when I say this, it's generally related to the metrics of the business, whether that's revenue, forecasting, but it's usually like, we make money because we spend money. So we spend $80,000 to $100,000 a day marketing to these people to bring them in, and we know how much money they'll make us on day 1 and day 30 and day 60 and day 90. And then we know what the metrics are, meaning like how many apps they install and what they do. We can take smart guesses at what we might be able to do to make a metric improve. And so I'm looking at something out 6 months, and then I extrapolate that all back out today. And I'm like, if we want to build this new thing there, we probably need 2 developers, and we need this and that and the other thing. I'm trying to think how to allocate the resources ahead of time. And then the team, of course, then has to go execute on that. We have a very knowledgeable team. They map things out. We track how long it takes to go from an idea to something hitting the table. If you can make a lot of smart decisions where you take $1 and turn it into 5, you're going to be successful, right? And better yet, 1 into 10. And so that's what we did. So our team is definitely always focused on that part now. As we've grown a lot of people are still kind of like internalizing that process. But I do think certainly the people who've been around here the longest have seen the process work, so they know how it happens.
I just want to double down on something for the audience that I think is so powerful. You said that you try to think 6 months out. And as business owners, many of us are just constantly in a reactive mode, right? Trying to fix fires, dealing with customers and stuff like that. And we have to remember that as the business owner, or really more the CEO, it's our job to be doing the thinking about that. And the pace of business is changing so fast that if you're not doing it, nobody else in the company is likely doing it. And you're going to end up with more fires because you're going to have all sorts of issues, not to mention not going to be able to capitalize on opportunities in the changing marketplace. A lot of people associate change with, oh, this is going to be a challenge for me, as opposed to an opportunity. And you can do that when you actually set aside the time to think. So I thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to add that little note. I want to switch gears a little bit. You have been working with Work Better Now. I think you made your first hire about 4 or 5 months ago. Since then, you hired an additional 4 Work Better Now remote professionals. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience?
Yeah, it's been great. When you and I first met and I heard about it, I didn't have an immediate position in mind, but I was like, seems like a great value exchange. And we're built to be a remote first organization. And so as things kept going, it's expensive to hire people in the United States, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be home runs any more than anybody else. And we were kind of building up this new division, and I was like, I think this is the perfect time to use Work Better Now folks. And we hired 2, and pretty much out of the gates, it started working pretty nicely. And with that confidence, I started looking in other areas. And as we continued to have needs, Work Better Now just became a good answer to some of our hiring needs rather than, again, primarily for entry-level positions, but way more than executive assistants. We have one person, I think we have six maybe now.
Yeah,
six.
I might have old data. Apologize.
We have six, and only half of one person's time is executive assistant. Everybody else is doing day-to-day business things. Even the gal who's doing executive assistants who worked with me, most of her time is spent doing other things. I put her in charge of programs that she's moving forward. Quite honestly, the other groups are working so smoothly, I don't even have too much to say. They just are happy, they're productive. They've made the employees that are working with them on a day-to-day basis very happy. When I don't have to check in on things and they just go smoothly, that's a big win for me. I think if people can find the right roles for folks, Work Better Now is an amazingly cost-effective solution for hiring remote workers.
Yeah, thanks for that, Daniel. I know you have, in addition to the person who's like in that executive assistant role, I know you have people working, I believe, working with your clients on the whole reward side, right? You have
the group of those 6,000 I told you that were our most valuable players. Yeah, so that's called our Elite Rewards Group. So 4 of the 6 people work in that group. So we have a gal here in the US who, with me, kind of helped kick that off at the beginning of the year. And we haven't got around to being able to automate a lot of it. And so we wanted to, but we saw huge results in increased retention rate by being able to give a more hands-on experience. And so working with Work Better Now has allowed us to greatly expand that team and its impact on the business faster than we could actually build products to improve those metrics.
That's really cool. I was going to ask you, what has, particularly that group of 4 that's working in the elite side of things, what has that enabled you to do? But I think you answered the question. It's enabled. Just to be clear, is it growth? Is it improved customer satisfaction?
It's probably improved customer satisfaction. What we were doing was a very hands-on communicate with people directly. I mean, we have millions of users. You cannot communicate and have one-on-one relationship with millions of people. So when we started this with the gal who runs the team, Allie, we just started with her reaching out to 10 people. So we built this very manual process of like communicating with them, giving them special offers. Again, imagine somebody walking into a Vegas casino and someone meets them and takes them to their room and gives them free buffet tickets. Like, that's what we're doing, right? We're a very hands-on process. That does not scale very quickly. So we tried, Allie could get it to about 100 to 200 people by herself. And now our goal is with the 4 Work Better Now folks to have all 6,000 of these top 1% of spenders supported. We are, of course, building some technology, so because there's a bigger group of 60,000 people who are really the total majority of spenders that you need automation. But it's hands-on communication. Your team's great at writing. There's a lot of writing and texting and communication. I think your guys' team's very adept at using AI tools, and it's bearing fruit, and increased retention. So
really, really happy to hear that. Part of our mission is to expand the capabilities of our professionals, and in doing so, helping our clients expand. And it sounds like you were able to leverage us and leverage our people, professionals, to do that. So that's really exciting. Daniel, what do you like to do when you're not working?
Well, I just bought a new Jeep that I pick up tomorrow. I live in Sedona and I've done a lot of hiking, but I'm looking forward into taking my Jeep out and see if I can go someplace and not roll it. Like hanging out with my friends, and my son lives in Sedona. My daughter lives in Seattle. We just were in Hawaii, as I had mentioned to you. So hanging out with friends and family is my primary happiness. So
when you go out on the Jeep out in the area, is it success if you break an axle in the Jeep, or is it like, because hey, wow, that's cool, or is that not a success?
I don't think I want to break anything, but I got a winch on my new Jeep, and I'm like, it's kind of like insurance. You don't ever want to use it, but you paid for it. So I'm like, I'm curious, I'm going to get myself into a situation where I need to use my winch. I don't know whether I'll be happy that I'm doing it or not. So I'll have to let you know.
All right. I'm looking forward to the update. Daniel, where can people find out more about you and Influence Mobile?
I do most of my communication on LinkedIn, so they can just look up Daniel Todd, CEO of Influence Mobile on LinkedIn, or they can, of course, find more information about our company at influencemobile.com.
Awesome. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us today, sharing your insights, and congratulations on all the awards and all the success that you've had at Influence Mobile. Looking forward to seeing you in person in January at the next Gathering of Giants. And I want to also thank all of the members of our community for watching. See everybody soon.
Thanks, buddy.